Hello and welcome to Scilence, a podcast that gives women a chance to get honest and open about what it's really like surviving and thriving in what often feels like a male-dominated world. All of my guests have been handpicked from the fields of science, technology, engineering and mathematics, or STEM, where inclusivity and diversity can be a real issue. I know this only too well, having been a mechanical engineer myself for a number of years. I'm Dr. Shini Somara, now a television broadcaster. I've worked on and reported on some cutting-edge technology and innovation over the years, and through my TV work, I've met some incredibly inspiring women from a diverse range of STEM fields. These women are true trailblazers, and I've often felt so empowered myself by learning what it's like to be them, real people. And they're usually real people when the cameras have been turned off and they're just being themselves. Each week on Scilence, one of these women shares her unique experiences and truth without the usual pressure and stress of having to promote her accomplishments or uphold her impressive reputation. How? Because all of my guests are deliberately kept anonymous and disguised to ensure that we as listeners are not distracted or maybe even intimidated by all the usual kinds of societal labels and trophies. The women of STEM on this show have amazingly impressive CVs, but most importantly, they're human, just like the rest of us, and I want to share the inspiration and wisdom that I've gathered from them with you. It's my hope that you really relate to what we chat about today, and if so, please do subscribe to Scilence and maybe even rate and review the show. I'd love to have your feedback. This week, my guest is in the field of cybersecurity. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on this show. I've heard great things.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I actually don't know too much about you, but I know someone that you know who was just telling me about how incredible you are. And I thought I've got to have someone who is very senior within the field of cybersecurity and has done so much come and share her kind of experiences, really.
I'm not sure I would consider myself very senior because that makes me old.
Okay.
Or that I've done all that much because there's a lot more I want to do, but I appreciate the compliments. Thank you.
So how did you get into an industry that is relatively young?
Well, so I've been in security my entire career, so going beyond 20 years. And it really was something that I fell into because in my earliest parts of my career, I was involved in very advanced networking and involved in a very fast paced industry. And what we found was within a nanosecond, it seemed, we had attacks going on in that environment. And so
Right.
we had to change with the times. And part of the way I had to change was to become, at a very young age, very aware of nation state threat actors, terrorist threat actors, all sorts of different actors who wanted the information we were, in essence, broadcasting. And so, across the
Right.
network. And so it was something that became a part of my DNA from an early part of my career. And it's funny because I think those early days of my career gave me the ability to really understand the ethical and the serious nature security professionals have. It's a really fun field. It's an amazingly fast-paced field, but there is a huge ethics component to it because you're putting the safety of nation states and people and companies and all sorts of things in the palm of technology's hands. And so
Yeah.
yeah, and so I shied away for many years from really calling or considering myself a security expert, though I was, because of that, just what I considered really ethical portion of it. And I had a long kind of paradox with myself about whether or not I wanted to be that much in charge of, somebody else's livelihood and future. So it took a long time for me to kind of come to terms and come to Jesus with myself and then um, go into the role full time.
How did you actually get into the industry to begin with? Like, was it obvious from a young age that this was how your career would unfold? I mean, I can't imagine a little girl kind of thinking about security or even being aware of it.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like my girls now, yes, I mean, my girls run around the house in in security shirts, and they talk about how they want to be in security. And so now, yes, very much so. I'm brainwashing the future on a daily basis. Um, but you're right. I mean, you have to think about it. I mean, so first of all, when I was a little girl, this was not an industry. Nobody even thought about security.
Yeah.
There was, I mean, in all seriousness, I'm older than the first ransomware. So, the idea of going into security is not something that, we would have thought about because computers were something,
Mm,
the idea of computers, it was just starting to come about. I remember getting my first,
yeah.
computer and it was basically a green screen and we were really excited when we could make a logo mouse, jump around on a frog. I mean, that was about what it did. So this was
Yeah.
not a field that you went into. And when I went to university, the idea that I mean, there was just the beginnings of computer science degrees at that point in a mainstream university, and I went to quite a
Mm,
good university. And the only reason I went into technology, I actually was going to law school, was a Fortune 25 company came knocking looking for my skill set in sales and said, "Would you consider it?" And I really thought about it and thought it would be a good maturity process. I didn't know a lot about tech, but I'd always been interested in engineering. I'd always been in every robotics and engineering and computer class I could get my hands on as a kid. So I decided to go into tech sales for a year, and it ended up where I just never looked back. It was first sales, and then I was a self-taught engineer. I had a lot of great mentors with engineering, and went into engineering and managing both sales and engineering, and then kind of working my way into different areas. The security just happened to be for me something that was part and parcel. It was always there
mm.
with the key accounts and the key solutions that I brought to market, and I was very fortunate or unfortunate, depending on which way you see it, to be a part of some of the most early real breakthroughs in security. If you think about DDoS mitigation or infrastructure as a service or things like that, that was a lot of my background. So it was never something that I
Mm.
intended to be a part of.
And so you kind of just followed your interest and curiosity.
I did. I did. I mean, I always had the interest and the curiosity. That was never it. I mean, I was trained 3 times to be security professional, and I turned down the jobs all 3 times because, again, I really felt like I didn't have enough of the chops in my book. And that's something I see with women all the time is I talk with women constantly that they always feel like they're lacking the skills in security. And I was the perfect use case.
Mm.
Literally trained 3 times to be a security professional in different companies, different facets, and all 3 times I went, nope, not for me. I don't have enough skills. I'm not trained enough. I don't know enough, and declined it. And it was
Mm.
finally a corporation that I was
Compared
working.
to what?
It wasn't me comparing myself to the men in the room, though all 3 times I was the only woman in the room. It wasn't, I knew I would pass the classes with top marks. I would, be the number one, whatever it was. And I would sit back and think, what if I allowed an attacker through? What if I caused a company to go down? What if I caused a breach? And it was more me really wrestling with, again, that responsibility I felt in security and still feel. It took a long time for me to, really get past that, absolute responsibility I see within our industry. And,
Right.
and I still get frustrated when I see people taking, security in a lackadaisical form. No, but I mean,
Mm.
it was a very long and winding road, and the only thing that really did kind of push and shove me was I finally had a company say, "You're going to take over our security division. You are a security professional." And I remember joking, saying, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Yes, you are." And we ended up where they locked me in a room with engineers, and until I basically agreed, "Yep, I have the same skill set," and it was. More on the ethics than it was the skills, and I ended up taking over their security company.
So it's basically people believing in you that allowed you to kind of move in this direction.
To some degree, yeah. I mean, I had a very strong skill set in technology for a number of years. Everyone knew I had a security background and a really, I mean, you joke about it, but I had a hardcore security background. I'd done some pretty amazing things in security. And I was the only one who went, no, 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 I don't do that. No. Mm.
Mm.
So it was
Yeah.
kind of making my own call than anything else. And again, I see that constantly with women
Mm.
is that, we tend to downplay our success in a certain market because it may not be what we think we fit in the box for.
How are we supposed to handle the fact that women just have a very different perspective on their abilities compared to men? Is it something that should we be more like men, or should we embrace how we are and somehow find a solution around it?
I think I don't think we would ever want to say, and I think it's a very dangerous statement to say we should be more like men,
Yes.
or for men to say they should be more
Mm.
like women. We are individuals.
Yes.
We
Mm.
and when you're talking about creating a great organization, a great culture to work in, the best cultures recognize that there are diverse views, diverse people, diverse, actions, everything you can think of that way, and that it's celebrating what makes us different between men and women or ethnicities or whatever that makes a company stronger,
Mm.
not something assimilation is never a good idea.
Yeah.
Assimilation is never the answer. So the critical thing is one, I really do believe that we should not be sometimes as hard on ourselves as an industry in STEM as we are on a regular basis. It is still a very new industry. If you think about it, it has been, from a computer science and a security perspective, like I said, I'm older than ransomware. Think about that. So
And yet
we
it's
have to
changing
think
every day.
about
You know,
exactly. It is.
challenges
It
are
is
cropping up
every
every
day.
single day.
So we
Yeah.
correct. And so when you think about that, the idea that we should assimilate when you have something changing every day, we need all of the diversity and different perspectives we can get if we're going to really solve for these issues that face
Mm.
cybersecurity. So, women don't need to be more like men, men don't need to be more like women. We just need to be celebratory that there is a space for everyone in this industry.
Mm.
We will use your skill set no matter who you are, and we will help you find what makes you passionate within our industry because we need everybody.
Right. So when you were feeling underqualified to do certain jobs, um,
Mm-hmm.
was that something that you had to figure out as an individual, or was there anything industry could have done to uh, move you along quicker?
I had been a senior executive for a number of years in multiple facets. I'd run different teams, I'd run everything. It wasn't that I was underqualified.
Mm.
It was I felt I didn't have in my head all the skills I would want.
Right.
I would want. Meaning I did not have a security background. I was not a hacker in my book. I didn't have the black hoodie. I didn't have what I had perceived to be the prerequisites
Mm.
to run a security company.
Oh,
It was nothing to do with what it was my own
right.
perception issue.
Right. Well, it's kind of amazing because basically you were standing in your own way. I mean, you had very high expectations of yourself.
And I will tell you that so I give a talk on a regular basis about my own journey. And every time I give it, I've had women cry, I've had women, come off stage and hug me. There's a huge subset of women out there that are their own worst
Mm.
enemies
Yeah.
in this way. That and it's not that we are being developed in a different way or a manner, but again, I think women tend to be more ethical. As not that men aren't, but just they see the responsibility that comes with
Right.
security in a
Yeah.
different light sometimes. And so there's that, we're always as women able to talk ourselves out of something. It's harder to talk ourselves into something. I think that's just the nature of being a woman. We're really good at that.
Mm.
And I don't think that's bred into us. I really think it's, part of us is
Yeah.
we are usually very good at talking our way out of things.
Mm.
So, what could society have done differently for me? I've really thought about that a lot. Um, I think society did the right things for me. I don't know if I would have been ready in my 20s or my early 30s to take on the career that was being pushed at me to some degree. I'm not sure where that would have ended me. I may have actually stepped totally out of it because it is a very fast-paced world.
Mm.
I was in a beautiful position where I was allowed, in my career to take a step back and raise my family. And I raised three beautiful children while they were very young, and then had a fourth. I have four children.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So you think about that. Yeah. So you think about that, and that I was allowed to have that flexibility and support structure to do that is almost unheard of in the Americas. When you think about that. Um, and then to have mentors, both male and female, who felt strongly enough that I needed to go back and do an executive role, and looking across what was available to me, and they were the ones who said security is really the way to go, and pushing me to believe in, yes, I could, not only could I do this, but I would have the bandwidth and the time and the abilities and the support structure. So, I think mine's one of success. I don't know if there's a way that would have made it any better or easier, other than we need to listen to
Mm.
our voices. And so as we develop young women and women returning into the workplace, it's giving them that exposure of, what is it that they want to receive out of their career, and how do we align to their goals? I mean, I always laugh that in my early 20s and 30s, my loves were, my husband and technology, and, the company I was working for, probably in that order. It was, my family, my husband. I love tech, always have. And, then and then my,
Mm.
the company. And as you get, older and more established in your life, now I would say, my children are right at the top of everything I do. So, any career, any choice I make has to, have that understanding that I'm a mom before I
Mm.
am an executive.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions and I don't know where to start. Ah, I mean, okay, so rewinding, what was it that
Yeah.
you received that was crucial to your success?
I received amazing advice at a very early age. Two pieces of advice. One was never say no when you want to say yes, when your gut says yes. And what that means is it didn't matter where I was in my career. And there's a lot of people that have thought at different points I was absolutely, jokingly batshit crazy. Um,
Yeah.
when, in the top of my career, top of my form, top of my game, I would take a step back, I'd take a step away, I'd go do something different and go do something else. And it wasn't because I, you know, was being forced to. It was, I felt in my heart taking on a new opportunity, doing something different, sometimes rebuilding my entire career. I'd go from the top of my career, and then all of a sudden back into a lower role, and I'd work my way back up again. And it was because in my gut, the yes was there. I wanted it. So never be afraid of the yes. Um, I don't care where you are in your career. I've walked out of positions number one in the company, and because it felt right. The second advice I was given, and this sounds really funny, but it's true, is fake it till you make it. Um, Executives put their pants on one leg at a time, one skirt at a time. Um, and what I mean by that is, there were times in my career where I would have to work with incredibly powerful people,
Mm.
way above my pay grade, billionaires and inventors and you name it, I've met them, in my career. And that advice, fake it till you make it, didn't mean be grandiose and overstep your bounds, but it meant you had a right at the table. You
Right.
have the right to be with anyone, talking to anyone, being a part of anything.
As in,
And
don't listen to the voices in your head that are telling you you
yeah,
can't.
yeah, don't listen to him. I mean, in that sense of, you know, um, I'll give an example. Was in my mid career, so middle level role. I was to pick up a C level and take him to a meeting with an incredibly famous C level in the U.S. markets, and sit there and take notes on the meeting, and then drive him back to the airport. That was my job, and I was very proud of that job. I felt that I was excited to have that opportunity just to breathe air with these two giants of business. And the one giant of business got sick, and I ended up having to take the meeting with the very famous C-level myself because there was no one else. And they gave me an elevated title for a day, and I walked in and did the meeting, shaking, terrified, but I did it.
But faking it till you made it.
Faked it till I made it. And the funny part is that titan of business, that person that I was terrified of, has become one of the best mentors I've ever had in my career.
Wow. And is that because even though you were faking it to make it, you were actually yourself when you were with that person?
Yeah, I was honest about it. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm here to do it because I'm the one. And he laughed. And I said, we're going to get through this and I'm going to knock through the points and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And are you good with this, sir? Yes, I am. Great. Let's go forward. And we did it.
It's kind of interesting that you call it faking it till you make it, because it sounds to me that you were actually being, you were feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It sounds like you were incredibly courageous.
Well, I mean, so the reason I call it fake it till they make it is to be bone chillingly honest. I called a woman that day who was in charge of all the things that needed to happen that day, and I explained what had happened. And she's the one who said, "Darling, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Go in there and do the meeting." And so I always remember that day and that time. And she's right. There's no reason that I couldn't
Mm.
have done it and did do it, and whatever
Mm.
else. So that's become a rally cry of my life. Is anytime I'm in a comfortable situation where I'm not sure I'm the right one, why am I not the right one? Why
Yeah.
can't I do
Yeah.
this? Rock on, let's go
I
do
mean,
it.
those two pieces
Yeah.
of advice that you received early on was basically about self-belief.
And I think sometimes we talk a lot about diversity. We talk a lot about how do we make things more inclusive. But the real critical thing is how do we make people want to be included and feel they have the worth to do that? And we haven't finished tackling that issue of self worth. If we don't enable people to have their own mindset in career and allow them the room to grow within that career, um, we're never going to tackle this issue. I mean,
Mm.
when I talk with young women, when I talk with diverse rooms, the issues I hear most about are I don't know if I'm valued. I don't know if I'm going to be able to have a family. I don't know if I'll be able to come back. I'm afraid of what this will do for my career. I'm afraid they're going to pass me over because they want a more diverse workforce. I'm afraid to try and take a step up because what if I get downsized out? I hear a lot of fear, and it's fear that doesn't need to be there if we have transparency around promotion and understanding that for 99% of people, they don't have goals. I'll say 90%. 90% of people don't have goals to be a C-level. They don't want that. They want to raise a family. They want to have some fun. They want to make enough money to do good things in life. And they want to retire. And they want to have enough money to be safe and settled. There's very few crazy people like me out there who want to change the world on a daily basis. So let's take
Mm.
the 10% that want to do something crazy and set them aside. And let's focus on the 90% who maybe don't need 10 promotions in their career and really would rather have a flexible working schedule or understand that it's okay to be in the same job for 20 years because they really like that job.
Mm.
Because that's the security professional. I know pen testers who get up in the morning, pen test every day, go to bed at night, get up the next morning, do it. And that's all they ever want to do because they love it. They don't need a career progression.
We need to give people the ability to be transparent, because there's always this culture of kind of um, saving face, or kind of doing things for show. What was the expression? Like FaceTime, as in, like, how long could you be in the office, and would you be able to boast about how you slept overnight at your desk or whatever. And perhaps if people are a bit more honest about what is truly important to them, like spending time with their kids, or finding a life partner, or just being able to spend
Yeah.
some time on self-caring activities, there wouldn't be this excessive competitive uh, kind of culture. in the workplace?
It's funny. I mean, I think the excessive competitiveness has gone significantly down in the past 15, 20 years. Um, Especially from when I started with my career. It's nothing like it was. Um,
Why do you think that
but
is?
Well, I think we have a lot more PC nature at this point in business, which is good. I mean, when I started, if you've ever seen the movie Boiler Room, honest to God, that's what it was like. You were in at 5 a.m. There was a guy in your face screaming at your desk. You were doing this. You were going to do that. Pansy ass, rah, 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 scream, scream, scream. Get on the phones, pound the phones, go, 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 go. And you were branded a traitor if you weren't in the office till 8 o'clock at night.
Mm,
I mean, it was a high pressure, high paced, crazy environment. And that died very quickly because it was not a badge of honor um, to do that. I think, though, there were other times looking back in my career. I remember when I announced I was having children, there was a lot of people that felt I was literally creating or committing suicide with my career. I remember when
mm,
I took a
yeah.
step back, I had people visibly angry that I would take a step back to stay with my family. I mean, I literally had people yelling at me about it.
Mm,
So to your point, I think you're right. Like, if we make the badge of honor about being a solid work life balance, first of all, you get better employees. They're not burned out. They're not,
mm,
trying to do things that are inhuman. And you get people that want to spend quality time doing jobs they love. You have a longevity of workforce. I mean, if you think about the most successful companies, look at Google, look at Amazon, look at the Microsoft, the benefits they give their workers, the flex time, the ability to have in daycare on site, creating a culture that allows for honesty around goal setting for your own personal life equates to better employees, bar none.
yeah. How did you at the time deal with someone screaming at you for choosing motherhood?
It was interesting. Um, the I had twin girls first. My twins came first, and I felt I could do it all. And I literally went back to work full time 6 weeks after twins were born. I was on a plane.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and was on the phone, I think maybe 48 hours after they were born, working deals and working deals and working whatever I needed to and making decisions on engineering. And, I never stopped. Um, with my son, the joke was my team figured out that I was sending emails 10 minutes before he was born. Um, Honest to God, like from the hospital bed, I was emailing. I was bored. I was bored. Um, I'm a little weird. I already warned you. Um, I think, for me, after my son was born, for some various reasons, I chose to take a full maternity leave and take the full 12 weeks, which sounds funny, but that's a long maternity leave in the Americas.
Right.
Um, and when I came back, there was already a negativity around that I had taken, the full time. And I remember being very, to some degree, upset.
Was your experience with your first maternity leave something that influenced your choice for the second maternity leave?
So the difference between the two maternity leaves really had to do with, I think, just all of a sudden, really some pressure from home and from, my life saying, you're never going to have another time to do this. And so
Mm,
I took the time and I really enjoyed it.
yeah.
And what I realized was that there was no reason I couldn't be an effective worker and spend more time with the kids. Like, there wasn't the need to
Mm,
be in the office every single day and constantly, 12 hours a day in the office, banging on the computer. I could work from home. I could do some things that were a little different. I could flex my schedule and get the same results. Um, and I did that for 3 years. And it was funny because what it taught me was I really saw a shift in my own priorities from wanting to be the one that was always in the office to wanting to be the one that had a really good work-life balance. And that was a gradual shift in my own thinking.
Mm.
And when I came to terms with that decision, it's funny because if I look back on the time, it was probably one of the most successful times in my career before I went into senior management. I was a director of a large corporation at that point. Then I was a vice president of a large corporation. And I remember being a VP and doing it all and having these kids, and it was amazing. But if I was going to continue it, something was going to have to give.
Yeah.
It was going to have to kind of give one way or another. And really sitting down with my husband and going, okay, well, what do we want to do here? And having the opportunity to go do something different came up relatively quickly. And it wasn't that I was unhappy or anything else, but they offered me the chance to stay at home
Right.
for 3 years. And looking at that and going, okay, well, should we do it? And going to the company I'd spent 12 years with and saying, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Would you allow me the opportunity? And the answer was no.
Wow.
You're crazy. Why would you ever do that? We can't afford you to do work from home. There's no way. And they made it a really easy decision.
Hmm. And do you think they were being unreasonable, or was it you that was demanding too much?
It's funny. I look back and the idea of flex working hours, working from home now is something that we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
People do it all the time. Back then, going back 10 years ago, it was so unheard of that you would have a manager, a director, a vice president that wasn't in the office every day, that wasn't leading the charge.
Mm.
And I was running teams that were global in nature. I mean, it wasn't like I saw my people on a daily basis. It was this, that, and the other. I just don't think it ever been thought of. I mean, it was such a new revolutionary concept.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is because, and this goes back to always listen to your yes. I was number one in the company. Like, and when you talk about walking out on the top of your game, I walked out and walked away from hundreds of thousands of dollars because it was important to me.
Mm.
Top accounts, recognition, to your point, that street cred and that, kind of false sense of, I'm really important. On more than one occasion in my life, I've walked straight away from it and into something new. Um, and that always lends to, I always, I laugh about it. There's always two perceptions that I have to deal with, and I think a lot of women do. When I make a move like that, there's always a lot of chatter of whether I'm crazy or not. She's completely insane. Why would she ever do that? I mean, she's terrified. She's tearing her career apart. She'll never be able to recover. Or she must know something that we don't know, and she's hiding something. Then there's a subversive that I've done something wrong, or misdeed. I've got nefarious
Mm.
blood in my veins, and no one would ever do that. Well, I did it. Sorry. That's always kind of the fun one too.
Yeah. I mean, listening to you, I'm really getting a sense that you just had an extreme strength and courage in your own abilities, an extreme belief in your own abilities, an assertiveness, a confidence, um, a refusal to listen to other people's opinions, or negative perceptions of you. You were just focused on what you wanted.
It's not a question of, I'll tell you, and I think when you think about STEM and women in STEM, I have never focused my career on what I necessarily want. I focus my career, if I look at my career, I focus my career on my absolute loves. Because if you love what you do, you'll be great at what you do. I love
Mm.
developing people. I love immersing myself in cutting edge, bleeding edge new technology that has the ability to do something different in the world and create a better world. And I love new challenge, whether it be right, wrong, or indifferent. And I will tell you that all three of those things terrify me to the depths of my soul. Because what if you get wrong
Hmm.
coaching a person? What if you get wrong new technology? What if you get wrong doing something different and doesn't do what you think it's going to do? So, you say that I sound very courageous and bravado, but the reality is that I'm constantly, as most very senior women I know, my good friends, we joke about this. We're all constantly temperature checking ourselves and each other. Do you think this is right? Do you think this is right? Oh my God, what did I do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Because we take it's a part of me. It's a part of my DNA.
Mm. And has it ever gone wrong?
Heck yes, 100%. And you pick yourself up and you lick your boots and you do it again. Because we all have to work. I can't just crawl into a corner and not work.
How have you how have you dealt with failure? Like, has it set you back? Has there been a period of time where you have to kind of lick your wounds?
Oh yeah, I mean, when you fail, this is the thing when you're in a role like this. When you fail and you're young and you fail and you're in lower roles, you fail, you go out and have drinks with your buddies, you probably need a strength therapy session, one or two, and you find a new job and you go do it again. And
Mm,
there's not the magnitude. When you fail at our level, um, it can be very public, it can be very hurtful, it can be a lot of chatter and craziness, and it can be damaging to the soul. I've dealt
mm,
with that. um, I'm lucky to say I haven't failed much in my career, so I haven't dealt with it much, thank God.
mm.
But
But
when
it
you do,
hasn't held you back, has it?
no, I mean, when you fail, you have to look two things. Bunny, I failed. I don't want to say I failed. I chose to leave. I chose to leave, not because I failed, but because the in essence the situation and the company and what I was doing, we were going in two different directions, and I failed to win the day, if that makes sense. Um,
Right.
and so, decided to leave because it was the right thing to do, whatever else. And it took me, I think, probably a good solid 6 to 9 months to recognize the success and the failure, and that it wasn't just the world against me, and to kind of come to terms with my own part that I played in my own demise to some degree in that role.
Mm.
um and to be mature and healthy about it. And it's funny because I think I was probably more of a hot mess than I ever realized for those 9 months, and thank God nobody really saw a lot of me in those 9 months, because I needed the time to not be a hot mess.
As you were working through that process of uh, getting out of your hot mess, were you doing that alone or did you have support?
No, I mean, you do have support. I mean, I support a family and friends and coaches and all sorts of good stuff. But the funny part when you talk about it is like, my hot mess was played out on a very public stage because, I am followed by lots of people on Twitter and LinkedIn, and, you have to keep working and you have to do a job here and you have to look at this and you have to look at that. And so, because I had jumped straight into, like I always had, another role, I didn't have time to process just how maybe mentally off I was in my own leadership, because I was still dealing with almost like you deal with the grief of a person dying. I was dealing with the grief of losing my last role and identity, and I never
Mm,
properly had buried it. So it
right.
took me, I think, a solid year to kind of 9 months to a year to really kind of put the baby to bed, and then move on with my own self. And that's something I think as women we tend to try and pretend we're more resilient than we are. Oh, it's okay. We're just going to continue. We just keep
Mm,
continuing. I've had great talks with other, women in my position where we don't give ourselves time to just go, that was awesome, or
yeah.
that
But
really
the
sucked.
irony is, I think women do that more than men do because we live in a culture where men really do sweep their emotions under the carpet and just, just soldier on.
I disagree with you there because there's a big difference. And what I see is when men transition and there's a failure or a problem or they decide to go do something else.
Mm.
It's almost like boom, they shed that skin and they go to the next one because there isn't the emotional tie of the role that you find with women. Women
Interesting.
identify and take on, we have these defined roles. We're a mother, we're a sister, we're a this, we're a that. Where with men, you have a lot, in senior, you have your work life and you have your home life, and they don't bleed as much together. So I don't see the same, in essence, and it's also too like, especially in security, there's so few women out there doing very senior work. We all know each other well. That when one of us has a failure, it's played out on a very public stage, whether we want
Mm.
it to or not, because you have all of your mentees, you have your mentors. What happened? What's this? What's that? Can you process? Can you do that? So it's constant, well, what are you going to do next? Because God forbid you decide to step down. I mean, who's going to fill your slot? That
Mm.
kind of a thing.
When it comes to the emotional side of what we do, there is this general consensus that women are much more emotional than men, and men are kind of denying their emotions. And from what you've said, it kind of seems that men actually just process their emotions very differently. So it's not like,
I would say they do feel it's a very different. Yeah, it's not. It's not that we're more emotional. We just process
yeah,
very differently.
yeah. So by definition, then, do you think that affects our suitability for tech or STEM roles?
I don't think it affects our suitability for tech or STEM roles. I think we need to realize that, if we think about our own abilities in tech and STEM, what we need to think about is not as much whether it's a woman or a man, but the understanding of how we would approach the jobs. So, you know, how do you make those roles appealing? It's the problem solving, and it's looking at what's going to make a good, in essence, case study for a woman versus a man in that role.
But then aren't you stereotyping if you're allocating jobs to people that are suitable for them?
Well, hang on, I'm not. Let me finish. I'm not.
Okay.
Uh-uh. So if I'll give you an example. If I were about to staff a SOC, um, I know I'm going to fill 20 seats. If I take the current job rec that's there and post it out, I'm going to get 90% male applicants and 10% female, maybe 10% female. Why is that? Because we're really good at writing laundry lists of what skills we want as a wish list, and
Hmm.
women don't respond to wish list because, like me, if they don't check every box, they're not going to check. They're not going to apply.
Yeah.
So we need to think about how we attract the right candidates, and this goes back to culture. If I were to write the same job rec and say, you know, um, growth position for a talented, technical person who has interest in this, and this, and is willing to learn on the job and be open to training, blah, 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 apply here, I'm going to get a significantly higher tick rate in female candidates. And that's going to allow me to have a better pool of candidates, even if I put two different job recs out, one that's more targeting my male audience and one that's targeting my female audience. Because if I'm able to pull from both, I'm going to have a much more robust workforce in the end. But it's being cognitive that that's out there.
That's absolutely fascinating. So actually, as women, we don't need to change at all. We just have to
No,
proudly be ourselves.
100%. And the one thing I'll say about that is recognizing that when you're going to be yourself, that that may make others uncomfortable because of gender stereotypes that we still need to get over.
Yes.
Great example. Um, you know, I remember my first review as a senior executive, and it's around Robin review and this and that. And my peer and I had gone head to head in like the last board meeting on a specific topic. And I remember getting pretty assertive and being like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do blah, 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 blah. And walking out of the room and my boss being like, you should probably tone it down. Like, it's getting a little hectic in there. I'm like, okay, okay. Um, the next week, same topic came up. The gentleman next to me said the exact same thing and basically regurgitated my points and was lauded for his assertiveness and directness in nature. Said basically the same exact thing I did. I
Yeah.
was told to tone it down. He
Yeah.
was told that it was great.
Mm.
So again, that's going to change with time as more women go into the boardroom.
Yeah.
It's not something that we can correct. We can alert, and I did. I alerted my boss at the time. I said, I said the same thing last week and you told me to tone it down. Like they said it to you and you were all excited. I said, what is that? And he went, well, I'm just not used to hearing you get forceful. And I said, well, is it a problem or is it you're just not used to it? Oh, I never thought of it that way. So there's ways
Oh
to
my
coach.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're never going to solve that issue at this moment.
Yeah.
It's going to take more of us in that position. But what we do is, as a good leader, any good leader will tell you, you will never change your team. You have to change around your team. So if I know that I'm going to be looked at as forceful or this or that or the
Mm.
other thing, then I have to change my style to fit the situation to get my point across. And that's okay. We do that in leadership all the time. That's not a male or women thing, that's leadership.
Right.
If you are going to be an effective leader and you are a type A personality and you're dealing with type C personalities, you better learn how to relate to a type C because they're never going to relate to a type A.
Right. It's so tricky though, because it's like, wait a minute, I'm changing myself to adapt to people with limitations or limited thinking.
It's not a question of limited thinking, it's culture. It's culture.
Right.
Think about it. This is the issue that I see in when we talk about diversity and inclusion a lot of the time is we want the world to change, right?
Mm.
You're doing this cast because you want to help the world change and be a better place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. At the end of the day, people change through influence, through repetition, through understanding a new normal.
Mm.
Remember when I said 10 years ago? Never would have been thought work from home.
Yeah.
Now it's work from home.
Yeah.
We do it through subtleties. So as women take more places in security, in technology, in larger roles, the idea of having their culture, their opinions, their style in a boardroom, on an executive panel, in the workplace, giving opinions will start to change over time. I am considered as you have said, very lauded, whatever else, blah, 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 blah. She's great. She's this, she's that. Yay. Awards in the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, my legacy is I am outspoken. I'm not always polished. I'll tell you exactly what I think. I can be an asset, I can be a liability, and I can be a pain in the ass. And I wouldn't have it any other way. You may like me, you may not like me, but I've allowed other women to come behind me and not suffer the same headaches that I went through.
Is that because you haven't always been this way and that you've evolved to be who you are today? And that, it would be a
I've
relief
been
to
this
hear
way.
that you weren't always like this, that you've grown to become like this.
Oh no, I've been this way my whole life.
Okay, so you've always been outspoken, you've always been
Mm-hmm.
a pain in the
Yep.
ass. Okay.
Yep. To some degree, yes. But
So
it's
what
not a
was giving
question.
you,
Yeah.
what gave you the bravery to always be outspoken?
I have a crazy quest for knowledge and understanding and helping people and loving life. It's just who I am.
Mm.
Celebrate, and that's the funny thing is, we so many times in business don't do that. Don't talk to this person. Don't
Yeah.
be like that. you're a little this, you're a little
Yep.
that. And that's the other thing with women, and I joke about this all the time, and it's something that makes me very sad in looking at diversity and is I've constantly in my senior career, not when I was younger, in my senior career, been coached, you know, you have to you have to tone it down. You have to be a little bit more like this. You have to be more like that. What do you think about wearing more suits? What do you think about wearing
Yeah.
less dresses? Do you think your hair's the right color? Maybe you could make the nails a little shorter. Like everything is dissected about me from my nose to my
How did
toes.
you not get crushed by that? That's what I just find so incredible.
Well, I mean, but that's and you don't hear that about male executives. Like,
No.
when's the last time you had somebody walk up to a man and be like, "Don't think that tie is really a good color, and maybe you shouldn't be on the press today because your hair's a little off." Um, like that doesn't happen to the guys.
Mm.
And I take it with a little bit of part and parcel, like, you know what? And I think about it, and whenever it's brought to me, I kind of go, okay, would you be saying this to somebody else? Oh, maybe not. But I just want you to do your best, Kate. Well, it's great. I really appreciate it. I thank you for the compliment, but I'm going to still do it my way. So you
Oh, I
kind of
love
have
that.
to get your own voice and all of it too.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, if I was to boil it down, it sounds as though you're just not afraid of being unpopular.
No, I'm not. But on the same respect as everybody wants to be popular, when something, so there's two sides to it. If I'm out doing the executive thing, and what I mean by that is, doing the leadership thing, going out and, you know, giving a talk or changing the world or doing something. No, I'm not afraid to be unpopular. I'm not afraid at all. If I'm balancing and trying to battle for a team or doing something for my own organization, and facing whatever I need to face to get the result we need, am I afraid of being unpopular? No. But in the same respect, do I absolutely crave and love popularity from my company, my team, the people I support? 100%. And when I lose that,
Mm.
I'm crushed. So it's different. There's that balancing act. And I would say every strong woman I know has that balance. We will slay dragons left, right, and center. But our people, if they don't trust our vision, can slay us just as
Mm.
fast.
And what makes people trust your vision is your genuine passion for what you do. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about earlier that, you to strip away the confines of the look at me and what I've done and this and that, and I'm so cool. And the reality is that, you know, those of us that have really done it, been there, seen it, we don't need those monikers because they're already around us. What we need is the belief system of people who want us to continue in those roles. That is so much more powerful than any
Mm.
award you're gonna ever give
Yeah.
me.
Who are your role models?
Oh, you know what? This just came up. This just came up not too long ago. I am so blessed to have some of the most amazing mentors in the world who I love and adore, and I'm so beyond blessed to have in my stable of people and influence. But who are my role models? My role models, honest to God, are the young women in my company right now and the young women I am lucky enough to mentor because they're the real trailblazers. They're the ones coming after the bulldozers.
Mm.
Those of us that kind of bulldoze the doors open. They're the ones that are making the positive impact that don't have these shackles of we don't have enough diversity and I can't do it like the guys can and all this other stuff because they are doing it and they don't feel the same things. And they're my role models because they have just this incredible energy and can do collaboration and spirit. And I want to be like them. They're
Yeah.
awesome.
Why do you think they have that? Do you think that comes from seeing role models like you?
Oh God, I hope not. I'm teasing. Um, you know, it's always hard being the first, and it's always hard being last. It's really nice to be in the middle, and we're seeing the middle start to form, where women in technical roles is not unheard of. We have found a way to make it in college and in universities and in life acceptable to be a very career oriented woman. And it's exciting. And really lauded as a success to be a successful technologist as a woman in today's world. Where we lose them is when you want to start having work-life balance. And I look at all of my amazing role models right now and have a heart attack of what's going to happen in 10 years when they all fall in love and want to have kids. And hopefully we get it right by then,
Mm.
of being more inclusive on that role too. Um, but I think we're seeing the fruits of a lot of labor. And it's not women's labor, it's the industry's labor. The industry, up until a couple years ago, I didn't have a female mentor. All of my mentors were men who believed in me.
Mm.
I never thought about diversity as an issue for me until I became more of a senior role. I want that for them. I don't want them to ever worry about that gender got them a role.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, you honestly come across as being a woman that has it all. It's really, really inspiring. Um,
It's all duct tape and band-aids.
I mean, is that really is this concept of having it all a reality, or are there obvious compromises you've had to make in order to have all these different aspects of your life fulfilled?
I think you have to realize, like, I am so blessed. I do have amazing blessings in my life. I have a career that I absolutely love, a company that I'm, incredibly passionate about, a wonderful family, 4 children, a great marriage. I do have a lot of blessings. Um, the reality of the situation, though, is I'm sitting here right now in a ponytail, and I don't think I've brushed my teeth yet this morning. Um, my house always, to some degree, looks like the middle of a tornado. I'm really, really lucky when I get like 10 minutes to myself in a day. And I fall asleep on my computer more often than not when I shouldn't be. And I'm always apologizing to somebody for something I've forgotten. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I
Yeah.
get to experience and love a lot of different things. And you know what? If I chose to focus only on the career, I probably would be at a higher position than I am right now. And my husband might be happy because I'd be making a little more money than I am right now, but we wouldn't have the life
What
we
you
have.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is your husband like? Because uh, you just sound so badass that I wonder what kind of man is a good match for an alpha female like you.
Well, I can hear right now he's in the shower. He probably just picked up garbage from our rental house and is headed to the office himself. Um, we grew up together. I mean, not grew up together, but we've been together since my early 20s. He's in security as well. Um, he is laid back. He just likes boxes. He never had any goals into going into management. That was always my thing. And he's very supportive of our life.
Mm.
So there are days he's frustrated. The one thing that, where, I've probably worked a little too much, taken one too many business trips, and he'll sit me down and be like, you need to be a little bit more present in this world if we're going to continue it. Um, he likes to grumble that, there's no man on earth that does as much as him. And I just roll my eyes and tell him that then he should see half the women I know. But we do. We have a good balance. And
Mm.
what type of man is he? He's one that we never. And this sounds funny. We grew into this together. We never meant for this to happen. The goal was always for me to be a stay-at-home mom. That was what I wanted. And
Wow.
I mean, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And my career took off
What
very.
changed?
I was going to tell you, my career took off when I was very young, and I was with him, and we sat back and looked at the dollar signs, and not just the dollar signs, but the accolades. And very quickly in my career, I was doing some things that really did change the world, literally and figuratively.
Mm.
And we sat back and went, wow, okay, well, we can't look a gift horse in the mouth, and
Mm.
okay. And so we went through that, and then we decided to have a family, and we got through that. And he took a role closer to the house, so his office is literally 2 miles down the road from our house, so that he can be kind of Mr. Mom when I'm not around. and we got through that. And then it became, as the roles continued and we had daughters, it's the daughters who really,
Right.
I think, cemented the fact. We both love technology. We're both in STEM. We have, no joke, a server farm in our master bedroom. We're really weird people. Um, we constantly we have a server farm in our bedroom and no video game console in the house. It's kind of a crazy thing. But as I'm sitting here looking, I have like 10 computers on this desk and a drone. So hey, it's all good. Um, we wanted the girls. I never wanted my girls to ever be in a situation where somebody told them they can't. And so stepping into this role, being this role model, doing what I do, good, bad, or indifferent, some days great, other days not, I pray that it will make it easier for them. That's my life mission.
Right. And if there was a single piece of advice for, potential STEMers out there, what would it be so that, I really want to be like you when I grow up, even though I'm grown up. And in order to kind of emulate the life you have, what would there be a single piece of advice you could give us?
Here's the way to look at it. 1, don't take yourself too seriously. Life is fun. Your career should be fun. Love what you do and put everything in your world into it. Love what you do. The second thing is always be scared. I wake up scared every day. I go to bed scared every day. And what I mean by that is never be complacent. Always challenge yourself to do more than you have the day before. And the third piece of advice I would give is be honest with yourself. What are your goals? It's funny. You can lie to yourself all day long talking. You can't lie to yourself writing. Write down where you want to be. I do this at least once a year, in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. What is really important to you? Is it the family? Is it the accolades? Is it all those trappings of awards? That's okay. It can be. At different points in my career, I've had this where my goal was, I want to speak at RSA. Great. Did it. What's the next goal? And I still have bucket lists. Like my next 2 bucket list items are, I want to go to Davos and I want to do a TED Talk. Those are my 2 bucket list items that I'm working on right now, Davos and TED Talk. So, be honest about your goals. And last but not least, always be yourself. Always be yourself.
Gosh, I have absolute goosebumps just listening to you. I am so thoroughly inspired. I need to pick my jaw up off the floor. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your insights. Oh my gosh, I wish I could talk to you for hours more. But, I think there's just so much behind everything you've said that, it's enough to catapult someone's career aspirations into new dimensions. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that it went well. And thanks for the opportunity to do this. It was really a lot of fun.
That's it from my STEM guest this week. My gosh, I am literally blown away by what she said today. We've covered so many profound topics, and again, I feel like I need to go away and kind of just process everything she said, because I think if I was to follow her advice to the T, it would literally catapult my own career into new dimensions. What an amazing woman who really does appear to have it all, but is so honest about how she's managed that. Thanks for listening this week. Don't forget to rate and review this show, and catch you next week on Scilence.